the fact that the RFU wanted to invest in the domestic league, it's been a huge step forward for the standard of the domestic game, and we've seen players come out of there who maybe not like Shauna Brown, who might not necessarily have been involved in the system beforehand, Charlotte Pierce, who's recently into the EPS squad, because now the investment gone into the medical care, the strength and conditioning care, the quality of coach and the facilities, it's taken that next step on. And I think it was initially a 3-year investment, but we're already seeing that come to fruition as for the autumns, and then obviously into the Six Nations. So hopefully that's only going to get stronger and stronger as the years go on, really.
And so it's been a few names that brought on. Brought into the team by the league.
Oh, so, yeah. So like say like Shauna, Charlotte Pierce. We've seen people that sort of Ellie Kildun, the younger players, Zoe Harrisons, that have had chance to really play at the top end and at a higher standard than maybe a few years ago in the domestic game. So obviously this is giving people the opportunity to be seen. The coaches are at games every week. The clubs now have to invest in analysts to record the game to a high standard that we would expect of sort of recordings of an England game and that sort of thing. So actually that everyone gets watched every week, so there's no hiding place for the senior players, and there's an opportunity for newer players to come through and to shine and to stand out and be rewarded that by being called into EPS camps and then ultimately being selected to represent England and get their first caps and hopefully go on to many more. So it's fundamental to where we want to take this England team, and that's the reason that the RFU are investing in it, because if we get the domestic game right, that will improve, and then that will then allow players to come into the England side, which will make the England side even stronger and take that standard even higher.
Do you think England have an unfair advantage because obviously there's a lot of finance behind with the RFU compared to other teams? A lot of women's teams don't really have full-time setups, etc. Yeah,
so we can only look at ourselves, and regardless of whether we have investment or not, we always remain to have the highest standards for ourselves, and we are very lucky that our governing body does invest into all aspects of the women's game, from grassroots to the domestic game to the elite level, and hopefully that as players we appreciate that immensely, and hopefully we can back that up with performances and results and pushing that standard of rugby forward, and hopefully like the governing bodies from other nations can look and just see at the success of, by putting money into the women's game, how much it can improve, and not just for the international level but for the importance of growing the game as a whole. And rugby is not just about international rugby, it's about the social element and it being a game for everyone regardless of your ability.
Who do you see as your biggest rivals for this tournament?
I think you always get asked that question. I think we've seen over since the World Cup, teams are probably most prepared that they've ever been. They've had autumn internationals, they've had Six Nations warm-ups, they've had camps. Countries are now investing into their women's team. So we know that each opposition will prove a different task and a different challenge, and regardless of who that is, we'll have to take them individually one at a time and be at our best and put performance in to ensure that we get the results that we want. So I know it's a bit, yeah.
Preparation, there's one team in particular that you kind of think we really have to up our game this week because it's going to be even tougher than, say, last week.
Yeah, at the minute, I know it's very much a cliche, but we are genuinely not even talking about anyone other than Italy, which is our first game, and I think that's right, and I think that has to be that. We owe it the respect of each nation now, is that we will take one at a time, and we'll focus on them, and we'll put the right preparation and give people the due respect that they deserve nowadays to go, right, we've got Italy, and that is where our focus and attention has to be to get that right, because it doesn't matter in this tournament 2, 3, 4 games down the line, because if you don't get the first one right, then actually it doesn't matter how tough the opposition are following it, that we need to get off to a good start and get a good performance in.
And Sarah, you mentioned that World Cup. Is there still pain and hurt looking back at that World Cup final to beat Belfast, or is it completely parked? You're just focused on the Six Nations?
No, I think anyone that was involved in it, whether they were playing on the game, whether they were coaching, whether they had some input to it, whether they had supported you through it, whether they were fans, will always have some hurt towards it, and it was bitterly disappointing. Everyone wants to win that World Cup and to come so close to it. It certainly, I don't think it will ever leave anyone who was involved in it, but I think there's two things that could have happened. We could have let it define us, so we could have come out of that, sort of let it knock us down and not be able to pick ourselves back up again. And actually, one half of a game doesn't make us a bad team, and we know we've got areas to improve on and make sure that we improve to know when we get to big occasions like that, actually we can get and play the full 80 minutes to get the results that we want. So I think it's driven a lot of people that have been involved. It's driven a lot of people to come back out, come back fighting, and to go, do you know what, I'm not ready to sort of let it get to me and sort of bring me down. And I think that's the people that have been involved, and the new guys that have come in have just added to that energy and vibrancy to go, do you know what, this is my first involvement in England. I want to make it successful. And their drive and passion has sort of lifted us with them to take us on, hopefully, to a new level and to keep pushing our performances higher. So we're in a new cycle that 4 years' time, hopefully we can be on the end of a different result.
I know you say you're only looking forward to that kind of game, but does being favourites bring its own pressure?
It depends who puts it to be favourites. I mean, we obviously want to go out and win the tournament, but as does every nation that is starting to compete next week. And I don't think we allow that to bring pressure on us. I think for us, we almost bring that competitiveness within ourselves, and I wouldn't say pressure, but we bring a standard that we want to perform to, not just on the pitch when it comes to the games, but in training, when we're not in camp, when we're away from it, that drive and that standard that we challenge ourselves to be at. I think if we get that bit right, hopefully when we get to games, it makes that bit easier for us, and that pressure that is potentially perceived is not so great, that we're prepared and we're in our best place to take on those challenges.
You start your title defence against Italy. What threats do they bring? What are you wary of?
Yeah, I mean, especially away from home. We went there obviously 2 years ago, and I think they gave us a good old challenge right from the start. I think they scored from kick-off, so we know that they've got a very strong pack that will give them good front football. They have good set piece. They win ball from their line out. They win ball from their scrum, and then they've got some very exciting backs with pace, with footwork, that if we don't close them down and don't get a defensive game right, they will cause us problems. And we know they take time to break down and to put ourselves in the right areas and be really clinical, because if we're not clinical, then actually they can take advantage of it. And the way they play when sort of from broken field in that counter-attack game, they can be very dangerous. And although the score last year at the Stoop probably flattered the result a little bit, they certainly asked us a lot of questions, and we know that on home ground they're very strong competitors.
There's just one. You mentioned about investment in the women's game. Yeah, NatWest don't sponsor this championship. Does that send the right message for women's rugby?
Obviously, I can't really comment on that. I can only comment on what's played. Obviously, the people above organise all that stuff on commercial stuff, and I just play the game that I get coached to do.
Okay, thank you very much. Very clear and next.
Thank you.